The Timeline is a Blue Wire podcast. Welcome to the Timeline of Phoenix Suns podcast. My name is Mike, here with Sam. Sam, how you doing?
I'm doing pretty well, man. I was just telling you before we got going here that it was nice to have a couple of days off on the weekend after this team has obviously lost 4 of their last 5. We covered their most recent loss against the Kings on playback. But some good news coming out now. Some potential returning players very soon. And yeah, it was nice just to have a couple days off to kind of unwind and I think, you know, sit there and sulk with the recent losses, but I think we're on we're on our way up again, so we don't have to worry about it too bad.
Yeah, we've been schedule-wise, this podcast main feed has been kind of lucky with when we've recorded, whether it be like in the middle of a win streak or after a couple losses, then they have a win, and then we get to record. But now there's just no way to get out of this week. It started, the disaster week sort of started with Wednesday against the Toronto Raptors, Wednesday, November 29th, which it was Raptors loss, Nuggets loss, Grizzlies win on the second night of a back-to-back where Devin Booker played really well. Los Angeles Lakers loss, Sacramento Kings loss, both a result of the in-season tournament. Obviously, the Lakers was the was it quarterfinals? Is that what they called that one?
The rigged quarterfinals, yes.
Yes, and then the Sacramento Kings game was a game that was scheduled because both the Suns and the Kings lost in the quarterfinals, and that resulted in the Kings, which now the Suns play 4 more times, so we'll have a better opportunity to see a more healthy team against the Sacramento Kings later. But, that Kings loss in particular, no Kevin Durant, no Bradley Beal, no Grayson Allen. And then Nurkic, who was probably the second best player in that game, left in the middle of the third quarter, or at the beginning of the third quarter, because he got hit in the face. And the entire game fell apart because it was essentially Devin Booker playing with guys that would have been on the 2018 Suns team, basically.
Real quick, can we address in-season tournament final thoughts, wrap it up?
Sure.
How do I put this? I soured on it over the past week. I think last time we talked about it publicly, we were so into it. Maybe even our last main feed episode might have been previewing that Lakers game. And did you watch the finals between the Lakers and Pacers? I did not.
No,
neither did I.
Did not.
Neither did I. I couldn't bring myself to do it. I love Tyrese Halliburton. I think it was such a, coming of age moment for him this entire tournament. I think he probably added so many fans. Which is great for him, but I knew what the final result of that game was going to be, and I did not feel like watching it. I still think it was a success for the NBA. I saw some instigators out there posting, the usual suspects, posting like articles and Substack newsletters and whatever about it wasn't a success based on let's compare it to the ratings of a playoff game, which doesn't make any sense. Because it just needs to be compared to a regular season game from November or December. And in that context, it was an obvious success. Yeah. It just hurt for Suns fans a little bit more, I think, because who wants to watch LeBron win,
Yeah. I mean, the fact that it worked out exactly as the NBA probably would have wanted just adds a layer of suspicion on the entire thing, which I think maybe the NBA doesn't care because they got a bunch of Lakers fans from all over the country watching, all over the world watching that game or those last few games. But it does make every other fan of every other team just a little bit suspicious, regardless of whether or not that's founded. It's just what happens with the NBA sometimes. And it's interesting too because like over the course of a series, you see things kind of even out, but in a single game elimination style, the refs do have a pretty large impact over who wins, regardless of if it's on purpose or not. If they're calling fouls in a certain way that benefits a team, then it's just a single game. All they have to do is win that game, right? And then they move on. So I understand why people soured on it a little bit, but I still think it's really interesting. I did see Adam Silver say that the finals court, the NBA finals court, might be similar to a in-season tournament court, and I definitely disagree with that. I don't think the final games in Las Vegas, that court looked awful, right? That didn't look good.
Yeah,
I don't know why they would do that in the finals.
Typically, what do the finals courts look like? They have like some little kind of homage to the Larry O'Brien Trophy, usually somewhere on the court, right? But otherwise,
last year they had a
normal.
big giant. They had a big giant trophy in the middle of the court. I believe last year. So.
Yeah, it's fun.
Yeah, we don't need it to be blue,
no,
or red. Just let us see the wood and then put a trophy on it. We're good to go. I think everyone's used to that. There's something that has to be done, I think, with the NBA Finals, where something about what we're watching in that moment relates back to history and everyone else who's been in those moments in the past. And if you stray too far from that, it won't feel as big. It won't feel as historic. In some ways, watching these games without Mark Jackson and Jeff Van Gundy was a little bit weird, because they're like, these are really important, but also the voices that I've heard in really important games over the course of the last 10, 15 years were not there.
Yeah, I'm not going to lie.
That was a little weird.
I didn't think about that once. I did not think about that once. I understand what you're saying, but I did not miss those particular voices on my screen.
I understand that. But yeah, so I mean, on to what actually we're looking at now, because in some ways, a bad week ends with good news for the Suns. A bad week and a half ends with good news for the Suns, and that's that Bradley Beal is on track to play as early as Tuesday, which we're recording this on Monday, so that's tomorrow, against the Golden State Warriors. And that means that it could be the debut of the big three together, Devin Booker, Bradley Beal, Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant also rolled his ankle in the last game the Suns played with him in it, which was the Lakers game, I believe. So it's possible Kevin Durant doesn't play that game.
Did not practice as of yesterday. That's the most recent update we heard on KD, that yesterday being Sunday. So yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure they're all going to suit up tomorrow. Right now, what I'm really just hoping for is a Beal return. If not tomorrow, they also have a back-to-back. They play Wednesday at home against Brooklyn. Just hoping to see him back in one of those two games, honestly, would be huge. And if you can get KD back in those games too, that's great. But, Beal has only played 3 games this season. He was on a minutes restriction. They were not he was not performing at his best, I would say, already in those games. I think we saw elements of what he was capable of, but there wasn't any one of those 3 games, if you think back on it, where he really looked like a superstar. Certainly not, or even a star player.
An all-star, yeah.
Yeah, it was clear that his conditioning wasn't quite right. Obviously, we need to leave him, kind of some time to ramp up. Coming back here again too, his conditioning will probably not be where it needs to be, but just to see him on the court, that's what we've been waiting for, right? And we're going to talk about some stats, some quarter season stats. That's kind of the main hook of this episode. Mm-hmm. But I think as we get into these and kind of some of the weaknesses that we've identified for the Suns so far, so much of this stuff will be fixed by just having a healthy Bradley Beal, if we can get him for a consistent stretch of 30, 40, 50 games. So that's what we're holding on to here.
Yeah, it's the case where he's going to play probably against the Golden State Warriors. Maybe he won't play in the second night of a back-to-back against the Nets. Maybe he will. Maybe he feels good enough. Full participant at practice, supposedly, Bradley Beal, over the last few practices. So maybe he will play both of those games. It's possible we'll get one game with Bradley Beal and Devin Booker and another game with Devin Booker and Kevin Durant and no Bradley Beal. So we'll see how it works out. We are planning on doing, just to put it out there right now, Wednesday's game against the Brooklyn Nets on playback. So if you want to watch that with us, talking over that one, check us out at playback.tv/the timeline, and we'll do that game. But yes, we're going to do, so it is a quarter of the season's up, which is weird to say because we have yet to see the entire big three together. So we're going to do some stats related to that. It's something that we've done on this podcast pretty regularly over the past few years, where Sam and I separately, without talking about what we're looking up, find some stats that we find interesting over the course of the time that we're talking about. And in this particular case, I think it's interesting because team stats are kind of jacked up for this team. This is not one of my stats that I've mentioned before, but they've played over 200 5-man lineups. In this team has played so far this season, meaning that they're just all over the place because of injuries so far. But it is an interesting time to pull these team stats regardless, because now we sort of have an understanding of the baseline of where they were at before Bradley Beal was healthy, and then we can kind of look back on some of these stats that we're pulling in this episode to talk about how that changed with Bradley Beal being healthy, hopefully, over the next stretch of the season. And which, by the way, good time, because they're going to be at home for a significant stretch coming right now, so they have the ability to, at the very least, sleep in their own beds.
Yeah, look, so there's no way to kind of go into these stats without just underscoring the instability that this team has faced for the past couple of months, right? It like has seeped into every element of who they are, and I think in many ways has made it difficult for us to really suss out what is. We came in with our own preconceptions, right? What is the identity of this team? What is the identity of Frank Vogel as a coach? What is the identity of a team with Devin Booker as its point guard, yada yada? I think we're starting to uncover the answer to that just a little bit, but there are still a lot of question marks. And as we kind of gear up for hopefully a healthy second half of the season or 3/4 of the season or whatever, we can kind of look at each of these categories and sort of identify, like, to what extent are these just personnel issues? Will these just be helped by Bradley Beal will be back? And to what extent is there, some more room for improvement that could be specifically tied to coaching or specifically tied to like a particular player? The difficult thing I think for a lot of Suns fans, and of course you always expect this to happen, but the team is barely over 500 right now. They've lost 4 of their last 5, and the blame game starts to happen, right? So like we're starting to see a lot of people pointing fingers at particular characters. And I don't know, just hopefully by talking through some of this stuff, maybe we can kind of reason it out in a not sensationalized way, I think is our goal here. So we'll see. Maybe we'll do a decent job of it. Maybe we won't.
Well, we're going to go back and forth on these. We didn't talk about what we were pulling as far as stats before this, but I think we should start with just some basic ones that, I don't know if you probably have these. They're just obvious stats. Where the Suns rank offense and defense on the season, they're 10th in offense and 19th in defense. And with that combination, partially because of some of the clutch play and injuries and the defense slipping, they are now 14th overall in net rating. So just put those stats out there. Obviously, we expect the Suns to be better offensively when the Stars play together. And then defensively, the one thing that I found as part of this that you can comment on as well, in the last 10 games, they're actually 11th in offense, so basically the same, but also 11th in defense, which makes them 10th overall in net rating in the last 10 games. So the defense has sort of fluctuated up and down throughout the season, but I think there was a stretch sort of after the first few games where it was really bad, and now they're getting a little bit better as the season rolls along. But what are your thoughts on those general stats?
Yeah, it was the first place I wanted to go to as well. Specifically the offense, I think it's important to really focus on the fact that the Suns, again, Big Three has not played yet, right? 10th in offense. 121 is their offensive rating with Devin Booker on the floor. That is exceptional. 119 is their offensive rating with Kevin Durant on the floor. That is still pretty exceptional. And Bradley Beal's played 3 games. And if this is the floor of what this team is capable of offensively, then I think, before we get into the rest of the stats, and I think we're going to identify like their weaknesses, and we're going to talk about some of the things that concern us, and, all of that has its place. But let's just start with acknowledging that I think they're every bit as talented offensively as we expected coming into the season, given the circumstances, given the personnel. I think there have been a couple of guys you could identify, some of the minimum contract signings who have not played maybe to the expectation that we hoped for. But the starting lineup is damn good. And guys like Grayson Allen and Eric Gordon have been damn good. And you envision the ability to finally stick those two on the bench, and you start to understand how this team could really gain some positive momentum, specifically on the offensive side of the ball. And we'll talk about defense too, because I do think in many ways their defense has been underrated. But yeah, just starting there. They're a really good offensive team. That's the first. That's the first stat. I mean, the fact that just that 121 offensive rating stat with Devin Booker, given some of the players he's been next to, some of the lineups he's been in with like Jordan Goodwin and Josh Okogie at the same time, right? Like it's remarkable that he has dragged some of these teams to the offensive rating that he has.
Yeah, it's definitely true. By the way, the Suns are practicing right now. We just got a report from the practice right now while we're recording. Frank Vogel, this is from Gerald. Frank Vogel says Kevin Durant and Grayson Allen were limited participants in practice today.
Okay.
Bradley Beal is available, so they're confirming that for tomorrow, right? There could have been a setback today, but he's available. Grayson Allen is out, so no Grayson Allen against the Golden State Warriors. KD is questionable, so KD can still potentially play, probably depending on how his ankle feels tomorrow. So there's an update on that. So
kind of sounds like we might get Book and Beal on Tuesday and Book and KD on Wednesday. And just still kind of ironically not see the big three together for either of those two games. But just to have two of the three available would be a big boost. So yeah, good update.
And just knowing as of this point today, recording at 12:20 on Monday, Bradley Beal is available. It's just fun to see because we have yet to see him. And regardless of the big three, Devin Booker and Bradley Beal have not shared the court together since preseason. So that will be fun to see as well.
And even in preseason, they did it for one half of a game.
Well, I think it was two.
Was it 2 games?
I think there was 2 where they scored like 75 points in each half that they played together. But just to add to the point that you're bringing up about Devin Booker, going back to last season, so all the way to the Kevin Durant trade last season, when Durant and Booker played together, this is one of my stats here, they're 15-3. The Suns are 15-3 when Devin Booker and Kevin Durant played together. And, it's tough in talking about this team so far because when Suns fans say that this season is 1, disappointing, 2, frustrating, or not fun, a lot of the things that come with a team that is underperforming just record-wise. It's understandable. But also when they're healthy, they're pretty good. And so that just sort of puts the lens on the entire season. It's very much health-related as far as what this team is looking at so far this season. So we're talking about Bradley Beal potentially playing tomorrow. That's obviously going to be really helpful. But the vision of this team, of course, is what they're going to look like when they're healthy. And so far, that's been pretty good. Because when Durant and Booker play together, there's somebody that's pretty amazing on the court, basically probably 42 of the 48 minutes of the game. Maybe 3 minutes in each half where Jordan Goodwin's running the offense, and maybe that's not that great.
Jordan Goodwin's running, his point guard, and Eric Gordon is jacking up shots. And, to Eric Gordon's credit, I think he's done a pretty good job thrust into that role, but obviously those lineups can't stack up. It's going to be a lot different if we finally see all three of them together. You want to talk about the defense a little bit? Because I've got
go ahead. You have a stat? Go ahead.
Yeah, just related to what you were saying. I'll give you credit here. You actually told me to look this up because I have a Cleaning the Glass subscription, and I did not know that you could look up this particular stat on Cleaning the Glass. But the Suns are 12th. You said they're 19th in overall defensive rating, correct?
Yes.
They are 12th in half-court defensive rating per Cleaning the Glass. However, they are 22nd in half-court defensive frequency, which implies something very important, which is that when the Suns defense gets set, 12th on the entire season, Yusuf Nurkic as your starting center, I think is a hell of a lot better than we expected them to be. And starting from a place of relative strength. 22nd in half-court defensive frequency, though, implies that their defense isn't getting set, that teams are running on them in transition, and that a lot of where that 19th in overall defensive rating comes into play is not so much a half-court personnel issue, not so much like once they get into their schemes that they're being exploited over and over again, that there are certain players who are being picked on, but rather just that they're turning the ball over a lot, they're letting other teams run out and leak out, and it's turning into an overall bad defensive picture. But if you can clean that part up, there's something to build on here. There's a real foundation for a positive defense.
Yeah, and I know that the thought about the NBA playoffs is often that it's easier to be more focused on limiting transition offense, which I think is true to some extent, but I do think that the Suns still have a problem. And I knew you were looking that up. That's the one thing we did talk about beforehand, so I did look this up as well. The Suns are 25th in turnover percentage. So there's only 5 teams in the NBA that turn over the ball more than the Suns on a possession-by-possession basis. That it's just not good for a team that's this good. And I know that's partially health related, of course. When Devin Booker's in, the turnovers are generally less, unless the Lakers have the refs on their side, of course. But when he plays, there's less turnovers. When Bradley Beal plays and Devin Booker plays and Kevin Durant plays, that's probably the best case turnover-wise for the Suns, as far as at least when they're fully ready. Because I do want to let people know that there's going to be a little bit of a learning period here with Bradley Beal coming back as well, similar to what it looked like at the beginning of the season with all these new players. You put another player that's going to be on the ball a lot into the mix, there's going to be a learning period there as well. But the combination of all three should limit turnovers the most, and that'll help them to get more set in their defense. Now, having said that, I do think we've talked about it since preseason, since before preseason even. This is the team that's sort of built to have a higher amount of turnovers than before. Like, I think the ceiling probably for them, turnover-wise, is like middle of the pack in the NBA, turnover-wise. And that means that there needs to be a higher effort to limit transition offense from the other teams in general. It's not just about limiting turnovers. They also have to get back a little bit better in transition. I think sometimes Devin Booker struggles with that. I think sometimes Kevin Durant struggles with that. And if there's just one or two guys not running back, that deflates everyone who's running back to try and stop transition offense. So it's an everyone does everything team, as we talked about. That means the leaders have to get back in transition as well to show everyone that it's important to do that. But yeah, it's a good point, and I have some more defensive stats we're going to talk about later. But when they're in the half court, they've done a good job stopping teams so far this season. Good enough with how good their offense can be to be one of the best teams in the NBA so far. So thank you for looking that one up. Okay, another one for me. This is related to what we were just talking about. And this is specific about Jusuf Nurkic. And this is on the season when Jusuf Nurkic is on the floor. First of all, they have the second best net rating. This is a guy who's played every game so far for the Suns. I think maybe the only starter who's done that so far. Second best net rating, but 111.9 defensive rating while Jusuf Nurkic is on the floor, which is equivalent to the 9th best defense in the NBA. But specific to recent play, over the last 10 games, when Jusuf Nurkic is on the floor, and this, by the way, this last 10-game stretch for him, just by the eye test alone, has looked great. I think offensively and defensively. Offensively, of course, to his ceiling. Not like he's going to be one of the best offensive centers out there. But over the last 10 games, 108.5 defensive rating when Jusuf Nurkic is on the floor, which is equivalent to the second best defense in the NBA. So just showing that there has been some growth.
You mean
defensively?
For team stats when you're talking about
for team
that, right?
stats,
Like,
exactly.
Yeah,
yes.
sure.
Yeah, because this is a team stat ultimately.
Just to not give people the wrong idea, there are individual players, individual centers
Yes.
who have a better defensive rating than that, but
yes,
still good.
Yes. So the Suns are just playing at a higher level of defense when Jusuf Nurkic is on the floor recently than compared to the beginning of the season. This is a combination, I think, of Jusuf Nurkic playing better, but as well the rest of the team kind of getting used to what he's good at and what other players on the floor are good at, as well as I think some Frank Vogel figuring out some lineups to maximize the defense against certain teams. But credit, I think, to Jusuf Nurkic, who's played better as of late.
Absolutely. I mean, I think this is a few weeks in a row that we've tried to throw some respect at Nurk, but it's entirely earned just based on our expectations of who he was going to be defensively. He's not going to be the best at any one coverage, but his ability to move his feet and navigate screens and even occasionally switch onto a perimeter guy, like I'm not going to lie, I still get a little bit nervous when he does it, but just the fact that he's doing so much is a huge testament to both him and Frank, because I was not anticipating it. I was expecting Nurk to come in here and be a heavy drop coverage guy. And in fact, that's not at all what we've seen. We've seen kind of a rejection of that defensive philosophy, which is what the Suns did with DeAndre Ayton last year, of playing heavily in drop coverage. And instead, yes, it's part of their defensive strategy, but we're seeing him play at the level and above the level quite often, whether it's him or Eubanks. When he is at the rim, he's doing a very good job of protecting and getting his hand on loose balls, and not racking up 5 or 6 blocks in any particular game, but I think he's averaging 1.5 blocks a game or something like that. So he has been just overall a pretty good defensive player, and you can, again, envision a foundation there for building around him.
I think it stood out recently, too, because Eubanks is not playing as well.
Yeah, Eubanks has struggled
Nurkic is getting better. Eubanks is struggling a little bit more. One of the surprises of the recent play from Nurkic as well was that the Suns have been running the ball into the post, through him in the post, quite a bit lately. Obviously, sort of peaked during that matchup against Jokic, where they were attempting to get Jokic in foul trouble, and they don't double on Nurkic because Nurkic can pass pretty well out of those doubles. So they just kept feeding him the ball in the post over and over and over again. Not sure that's going to be a consistent thing when the team's fully healthy, but nice to see that in a pinch, especially if there's no real point guard playing, they can kind of play through the post because they trust him to make the right play. Offensively, I think at the rim still has been a little bit of a up and down season for him, but he's playing closer to what his averages were, whereas when he started the season, he was well below that as far as efficiency at the rim. Last 10 games for him, too, 61% in the restricted area, which is like more of a guard's stat than a center stat normally, but that's much better than what he was doing previous to that.
For him, we'll take it. It's, given
it's
the
not, it's
45
not DeAndre Jordan.
Or 50%, whatever he was shooting at the beginning of the season, the Ben Wallace numbers, we'll take 61%.
Yeah, before Booker played, it was like 37% or something like that until Booker was back. So a much better stretch by him as of late, and I'm hoping to see that continue, especially defensively. Like I said, there's going to be a period here with Bradley Beal where the players have to get used to each other once again, and I'm hoping that doesn't have a negative impact on the defense in the short term. I hope that sitting on the bench, watching the game for Beal has helped him to understand what everyone's been good at. And we'll see how that works, because I do think that Frank Vogel asks a lot, especially out of centers defensively, but everyone, scheme-wise. They trap on some guys, they blitz some guys, they play high up and peel back on some guys, they ice on some guys, and this is all different guys on the court at one time. So the scheme is complicated with what they want to do against different players. So Beal's going to take some time to do that, and obviously I think Nurkic took some time to get used to that as well. All right, so that's some good praise for Yusuf Nurkic. What do you got?
I am going to redirect us more towards an offensive conversation. I want to talk about three-point shooting. This is something that I brought up on our most recent Patreon pod, so you may remember the points that I'm about to make, essentially, but I wanted to make sure this got out in front of a main feed audience, because I think we've talked so much in the overall conversation about things like turnovers. We've talked about rebounding is another thing that actually I do want to bring up later. But three-point shooting, I think this is a pretty big deal. The Suns are third in the NBA in three-point percentage. There are players individually who have disappointed us. I think Watanabe is not quite where we wanted him to be. Keita Bates-Diop, certainly not where we wanted him to be. Josh Okogie has not made the leap. Maybe no one except for me expected him to, but he has not made that leap. They are third in three-point percentage. They are 22nd in attempts. And what I brought this up after, when was the last time we recorded? Was it after the Lakers loss? Because it was something that was frustrating me, particularly in that game. But on the season as a whole, too, just because it feels like a lot of wasted potential. It feels like there are tools on this team that are going to waste. And when you look even more specifically at certain areas, corner threes is an area where the Suns are really struggling, not percentage-wise, but frequency-wise. During the Chris Paul tenure, the past 3 seasons, the Suns ranked 3rd, 13th, and 5th in corner 3-point attempts. This year, they are down to 23rd. That is the most efficient shot on the floor, other than a layup, obviously. If you can get a layup, that's great. But other than a layup, the most efficient shot on the floor is at corner 3. And the Suns have corner 3-point shooters. They've got maybe more than you can count on one hand, guys who can hit that shot at over 40%. Yeah. But they're not taking that shot very much. And they're doing a little bit better if you look at their above the break threes. I think much of that is thanks to Eric Gordon, who's really the only player on the entire roster that I would say is carrying his end of the bargain when we talk about 3-point shooting. But the rest of this team, we need to find a way to get that number up, because maybe the percentage dips a little bit if you just start jacking up 40 attempts per game. And I'm not asking them to become an entirely Morey ball jump shooting team. We understand that Devin Booker lives in the mid-range. We understand that Kevin Durant especially lives in the mid-range. But you need to find a way to open up the role players around them a little bit better. And yes, even Devin Booker, and this is something he's talked about with Frank Vogel, if Bradley Beal is coming back, if you can ever get a game where all three of them are playing together and you're no longer seeing those blitzes, because in the past couple of games, he's seen basically a blitz on every single possession. I don't expect him to rise up and take the pull-up three when that's the type of defensive coverage that he's seeing. But now, if the defense is going to be on its heels a little bit again and not playing so aggressively on Devin Booker, he needs to seize that space. And he's just one example of a guy who I really want to see flowing into that pull-up three opportunity. I know he's talked about it with Frank Vogel, so I hope we get to see it in fruition. But then, also the role players, like Grayson Allen, shooting 46% from deep, only taking 5 attempts per game. You need to get that number up, whether that's partially on him or partially on the scheme. I think it's a little bit of both, but there's a lot that they could be doing here to make sure that they're taking a modern, healthy number of threes in the offense.
I don't feel like this is a result of guys turning down a bunch of good shots. I do think that is occasionally happening. They're like Grayson Allen, I think, could shoot a little bit more. But I think it's good that he drives without Bradley Beal. When Bradley Beal's back, you got to stop turning those down occasionally, at the very least. But I do think, and you hit the nail on the head there. I think this stat is a little bit of a they're blitzing Devin Booker on every possession stat, and it's not just, I think, the fact that it's limiting Devin Booker's ability to shoot pull-ups, which he's doing a really good job shooting 41% above the break so far this season. But I also think that when they're forcing the ball out of Devin Booker's hands, it's just harder for the guys that are catching it to make the play for other guys. So if it's Jordan Goodwin, I think Nurkic is probably the best at it, right? But if it's Jordan Goodwin, if it's a Kogi, if it's Eubanks, they're just not going to find guys fast enough and in that shooting pocket well enough for them to catch it clean and get the look off before the help gets there. The other part about that is if it's Jordan Goodwin catching it, they're just not leaving the guys from the corner, right? They're daring Jordan Goodwin to shoot that floater, which he's done a good job at as of late when he's been put in that position. But you're right. I think when they're fully healthy, when everyone's available, there's just no reason to turn those down because it's going to be harder for teams to throw those kinds of coverages at Devin Booker in particular. I think when Kevin Durant's on the floor, it's a little easier to create three-point shots because the way that Durant creates for other guys is, if they just put him in the post and they double, then you can find corner shooters with moving the ball fast enough. But with Booker, when they're sending two guys at him from half court, it's just harder to create threes. Yeah, and Devin Booker likes to get downhill and then he can find guys.
It's a good point on KD. Again, like not to sound like a broken record, but Beal will help even more, I think, with the particular driving gravity that he creates versus putting KD in the post. And yes, he draws two to the ball, but I often feel like they're not helping from that corner position, right? They're not giving KD that pass, one pass away to a corner shooter necessarily. And if it's to the opposite corner, especially like, one of KD's weaknesses, he's not a particularly adept cross-court passer like Booker is. So I think if you insert Beal, if you inject him into that offense and he's the one, rather than like, playing out of the post and drawing two to the ball, if he's driving to the rim, that's how you're going to suck in the defense and you're going to get more of those east to west passing options available and hopefully open up those corner shooters and also wing shooters and, just get the three-point attempt rate up in general. So it's a combination of things. Like everything else with this team, it's just going to look better when it looks as intended. And as intended, that means all of the superstars need to actually play. But yeah, I hope I'm sure they're talking about it. I know they're talking about it. But I just hope we get to actually see it pretty soon because that number needs to go up.
And to Frank Vogel's credit too, the willingness to use guards to screen for Devin Booker when they're trapping Devin Booker over and over and over again means that when Bradley Beal's back, if a team is still trapping Devin Booker, they're just going to bring Beal up in that screen, and then now they're going to dare him to trap. Are you going to trap now when Bradley Beal can catch it and you're trapping at half court, so now Bradley Beal has a wide open 3-point shot, wide open lane to the rim, wide open mid-range shot, or can find any shooter? No, they're probably not. They're probably going to switch that. And then you're going to have different coverages and different options at that point. Bradley Beal, being a great cutter, can put a lot of pressure when he's ghost screening or just diving to the rim. But yeah, it is, to me, that is the trapping Devin Booker stat. But speaking of Kevin Durant, you brought him up. This is just one of those times where I'm marveling at just how good of a season Kevin Durant is having scoring-wise. 31 points, 64.4% true shooting percentage for Kevin Durant so far this season. So I looked up how many players have had this kind of season in the history of the NBA. That's 31 points with at least 64% true shooting. And the only players that have done this are Joel Embiid last year when he won MVP, Damian Lillard last year as well when he had probably his most efficient season he's ever had. Well, definitely.
And everyone even I forget that.
Yeah, he was unbelievable last year, but he rested half the season, so it's tough to, And then Steph Curry in 2021. So these are just three incredible players. One of them won an MVP. Just the season that Kevin Durant is having, and I know we say this a lot, is just unlike anything we've seen before from a player at his age. It's really the closest thing that you could even get to it is Steph Curry and what Steph Curry's done in the past. And he's still not scoring as much as Kevin Durant. And sometimes it feels like he doesn't even shoot that much. And that's the advantage of efficiency, is he can get to that 31 points without taking a ton of shots. An amazing season from KD so far, scoring-wise.
Yeah, and it sucked to see him roll his ankle the other day, but before that, I mean, he's done a very good job of being available. He's played. He's on track, maybe, to hit that 65-game requirement in order to be available for end-of-season awards. Now, I don't know. I think basically all of our big three, well, Beal's probably already out, isn't he? He probably has already missed the 17 games required. Book's going to come up real close on it pretty soon if he misses any more time. But as of today, the guy who has the best chance of qualifying for end-of-season awards on the Suns roster is definitely Kevin Durant. So let's hope he can see that through.
Yeah, definitely. All right, you got any more? I have a few more.
Yeah, we got to talk about rebounding, man. I teased it earlier.
Yep.
We got to talk about it. So the Suns, I think this is a really interesting mixed stat because get a load of this. The Suns are sixth in the NBA in offensive rebound percentage. That's very good. They are 25th in the NBA in opponent offensive rebound percentage. They are very good at crashing the glass. They are very bad at allowing other teams to crash the glass. Now, obviously, any sort of advantage created, just looking at a stat like that through offensive rebounding, is being neutralized by their lack of defensive rebounding. And once you actually pour into the stats, I don't even think you have to pour into the stats to understand what's going on here. This is the Josh Okogie and Jordan Goodwin are fucking lunatics stat, which is entirely...
And Nurkic is pretty good too, yeah.
Yes, he is. He's part of it. But this entire stat is just Josh Okogie and Jordan Goodwin are lunatics. And that is keeping the Suns not offensive rebounding not just afloat, but is actually making them a very good offensive rebounding team, even though those are two of the shortest guys on the entire roster. Josh Okogie has 37 offensive rebounds this season. Jordan Goodwin has 26 offensive rebounds. Kevin Durant has 5. Kevin Durant has 5 offensive rebounds. He is 7 feet tall. Josh Okogie has 37. So those two, you see why they play.
Yeah.
But then you go to the other side of the ball. And they're not the guys, they're not the defensive rebounders, Okogie and Goodwin, that is. They're not the defensive rebounders that they are on the other end. Is that due to natural talent, or is that because Vogel is telling them to leak out and make themselves available for offense? I'm honestly not sure. But they don't have the same impact on the defensive side of the ball, and so it lends itself to the situation where the one guy who is actually a good defensive rebounder on the Suns is Yusuf Nurkic. Yeah. This is why they brought him in. They brought him in specifically because he is an awesome defensive I mean, they brought him in for a bunch of reasons, right? The offensive, creating for others and whatever. But he's also a better defensive rebounder even than DeAndre Ayton was. He's averaging 12 rebounds, almost 12 rebounds per 36. And if you look at his defensive rebound numbers, he's been exceptionally solid. But he is only one person. And he can only occupy one person with a defensive box out at a time. And the other guys are not good. Kevin Durant
I think
is not good.
Yeah.
Keita Bates-Diop is not good. Nazir Little is not good. Yuta Watanabe is not good. Josh Okogie and Jordan Goodwin, relative to their size, are pretty good, but they're not on defense. They're not what they are on offense. And so you've got one guy who's holding it down, defensive rebounding. That's Yusuf Nurkic. Everyone else who's playing the power forward spot for the Suns right now is not doing their job. And we theorized that this would be the case before the season started because we know who Kevin Durant is. He's never been a good rebounder relative to his size. He gets like 6 rebounds per 36. For a 7-footer, that's not good. And other guys are even worse. Watanabe's at 4.5 rebounds per 36. He plays the power forward position for us primarily. So we have to decide to what extent we're willing to live with this situation and how we improve it. Because I think basically we know who these guys are and they're not going to get better. KD's not going to improve.
I don't know that they can.
I think there's 2 options here.
Yeah.
Option number 1, more Chimezie Metu at the 4.
Yeah, play bigger. They could play bigger.
He's their one option to play bigger. Now, everyone knows I have stock in Chimezie. He played 20-something minutes the other night against Sacramento. He took 4 threes. He missed them all. If he's going to play the power forward position, I've said the entire time, he needs to hit those threes. Otherwise, any advantage you're getting from his size, you're relinquishing in the fact that, he's maybe not an actual shooter. We need him to be an actual shooter. If Chimezie is not going to be the answer to that, playing him more over, say, Watanabe or KBD or whatever, your only other option is trade market or buyout options. For as much as we've talked about this team needs a backup point guard, this team could use maybe a better third center option, who's like a real center, not a tweener like Chimezie. Well, they kind of have a lot of needs all at once. And one among their more pressing ones is, maybe they could use another forward who's a forward and not kind of like a shooting guard, small forward masquerading as a power forward.
Yes,
what do you think?
I think when I think about it, I think that the Suns have a problem. One of the main reasons their record is what it is, which when I say that, I mean it could be better, is that they're just losing the possession battle too often. And it's one thing if you can be a mediocre to bad rebounding team and not turn the ball over, which is what the Suns were with Chris Paul over the last few years. And then you can sort of even out the possession battle with turnovers. But if you're doing both badly, that's when it becomes really a problem. You can't do that in both sides where you're struggling to secure the rebounds and then you're turning it over a bunch in the game. You can't do both of those things. So they have to do a better job. I'm not sure that it's solvable with the personnel the Suns currently have. And part of it is that Nurkic, although he is a good rebounder, is not athletic. So he can occupy his man and keep them away from getting the rebound. But he can't adjust, right? He can't hop from that position to get a contested rebound on the other side of the floor because he just can't jump. So he can occupy one guy while not getting the rebound. That's a problem as well. So other guys need to get in there and get the ball. I think they can improve slightly with the personnel they have with just better focus, and they did that against the Knicks game. I think was a good example of that, where the Suns, they played the best offensive rebounding center in the NBA in Mitchell Robinson and kept him from getting those rebounds with a really focused rebounding plan.
Who, by the way,
but I just don't think that's going to be regular.
Mitch is going to miss the next 8 to 10 weeks with
that sucks.
Ankle surgery. Huge blow to the Knicks there.
Yeah, he's been really good this year. Yes, that's a good one though. I think if you look at stats for the Suns, even just defensively, the stats that have hurt them the most in their defensive rating are turnovers and rebounding. And those are the things that I think if they can clean up even just a little bit will have a massive effect on what their defense can be for this team. So we'll see if they end up doing that. Let's talk about Eric Gordon. How do you feel about Eric Gordon so far this year?
Love him.
I do too. He's getting some people don't like watching him, I think.
I mean,
he gets some hate sometimes.
We haven't gotten a real shooting slump from him yet. And when we get there, I'm sure there's going to be a lot of hate for him. But like I said 10 minutes ago when we were talking about 3-pointers, he's holding up his end of the bargain. He was brought in to shoot. He needs to shoot. And he is doing it. So why would I have anything bad to say about Eric Gordon?
Well, defensively, I think that's where people get a little frustrated.
He's not good. He's not good.
He's been asked. They're playing a starting lineup that he's basically the guarding power forwards or guys who can attack pretty regularly, and that's a struggle for him. But I think he's been fine, to be honest. And here's a stat I have: Devin Booker and Eric Gordon have shared the court for 241 minutes this season. In the time that Devin Booker and Eric Gordon have shared the court, the Suns are plus 18.4. Plus 18.4 when Devin Booker and Eric Gordon share the court. And of all two-man lineups who have played 200 minutes or more, that's 7th best in the NBA. And, I just wanted to put it in there to give a little bit of perspective on what Eric Gordon brings to the team. Because sometimes I see some turnovers on this team. Devin Booker's driving in and then passes out to a guy, and there's 2 guys on him because nobody's guarding Josh Okogie. There's 2 guys on him because no one's guarding Keita Bates-Diop and stuff like that. And then I see minutes where Eric Gordon's on the court, and they're free. They're so free offensively because they'll never leave him. And if they do, he launches as soon as he catches the ball. And while sometimes the defense is a little rough to look at, the overall impact of what Eric Gordon can do when somebody like Devin Booker is driving is so massive, and people just need to remember that because I think he's had, first of all, when he has to be the second best player on the court, he does a pretty good job approximating that, just from injuries alone. But when they're sharing the court together, Devin Booker and Eric Gordon, massive difference that he makes for somebody like Booker who likes to drive.
I'm looking at his player page right now on Basketball Reference. He is averaging a career high in blocks as a 35-year-old. Eric Gordon, 0.6 blocks per game. And, of course, this is not one of my stats that I researched because I just already had it in the back of my head, but the Suns continue to be, if not first, then at least like top 2 or 3 in blocks per game. And, Nurkic is solid, but a lot of that is coming from their sort of ancillary role players. Yeah, they're still first in blocks per game. You think about like KBD, you think about Nazir Little, you think about Okogie, but even Eric Gordon's getting in there, man. He is 5th on the Suns in blocks per game.
Yeah.
Are those
I'll
real?
Take it.
Are those real blocks, or are those kind of like
they're
the
Chris
ones
Paul
that,
blocks?
They're Chris Paul blocks. But
Yeah.
good for him. Good for him. I had no idea.
That's when you're
I just
old.
Looked that up.
Your hands have to be faster when you're old because you're not going to jump up and block it. You just have to have the fast hands, and he does. I got 2 more. How many you got?
It depends on how much time you want to do because I know we want to hit a few voicemails here. I could bring up a couple more if we need to.
Do you want me to just go through mine if you don't have any more?
Sure, that's fine.
Okay, cool. They're short. This one's I just wanted to bring up because I just didn't anticipate this. To start the preseason, the Suns were adamant that they were going to play fast.
Yeah, that's
and
one
play
of mine.
With pace.
That was one of mine that I could have brought up.
And they are. And here's the thing. To start the season, they kind of were. What I didn't realize is one of the reasons they were playing faster to start the season is Devin Booker was out. Because when Devin Booker came back, the entire thing grinded to a halt. Now, you're talking about the things that Devin Booker has learned from Chris Paul. I think dictating the offense in the half court is one of them, and I don't necessarily think it's a bad thing so far this season. When Bradley Beal's back, I'm hoping they can play a little bit faster. But with the personnel that they have right now, playing slow makes sense. And to put a pin in it, when Devin Booker plays, the Suns play at a 95 pace, which is basically the slowest.
So slow. Oh my
in the NBA.
That is like 2003 Kobe ball slow. That's wild.
Yeah. And he's done well for the most part, right? There are games where the turnovers kind of rack up in the half court, the Lakers game being an example, but mostly he's done really well in those scenarios. But I'm curious to see, because now we have a timestamp, right? We're recording this podcast right before Bradley Beal comes back. Assuming he plays a long stretch with the team, we'll be able to look at the stats of how fast they play when Bradley Beal's in, or even beyond that, how fast when Devin Booker and Bradley Beal are in together. And with the way they're trapping Devin Booker, playing a little slower and playing a little methodical makes a lot of sense. If they're unable to do that, injecting a little chaos into this team, I think will, one, make it a little more exciting to watch, and two, actually be beneficial for the offense when you have multiple guys who can attack and score from anywhere on the court.
Yeah, I think we also see it kind of reflected just in their results this year, right? Like the fact that they're not able necessarily to hit that next gear from a pace perspective. The Suns, in spite of the fact that they've lost a lot of games recently, they have yet to lose a game this season by more than, I think, 11 or 12 points. Like, they have not been blown out. And they've lost, 9 games now? 10 games?
Yeah 10, I think, yeah.
But also, have they blown anyone out on the other side? I'm honestly not sure. Let's if you think about it, Bol
the Jazz in the third game of the season.
Okay.
That's the only one it looks like.
Bol's got to be tight because he has not had many opportunities to play on this team. And I think pace really comes into that. Like, I think Beal's going to come back and the offense is going to mesh. And I think they're going to find a way to eke out a lot of victories. But it would be nice if they can hit that next gear that really allows them to just stomp on someone early and not give them a chance to come back in the game. Right? Pace, transition offense is going to allow them to hit, some of those 15, 20, 25-point victories that we just haven't seen from them so far. It might occasionally enable a 20-point defeat as well that we also haven't seen so far.
Yeah.
But that's a risk I'm willing to take.
All right, last one for me, a quick one. Josh Okogie shooting 23.4% on three-pointers this season. And this is a crazy stat that I saw when I was looking at his shot tracking. He has not been contested on a single three-pointer this season.
That hurts.
Every single three he has taken by NBA tracking stats has been open or wide open. And he is shooting 23.4%. Not a single hand in his face ever. Once this year. And last year he shot better. A lot better, in fact. 10%, you could say. But yeah, he just can't shoot, man. It's just not happening so far this season.
Do you have his career number in front of you by any chance?
No, but I can bring it up pretty quickly if you want it.
It's probably
because
30. Yeah, it just sucked because it felt like last year he was heading in a positive direction. Like the fact that he had gotten
28%.
Yep. Yeah, he's even below his career average. That's tough.
Yeah. And not one hand in his face. Poor guy. He's still playing well. I think they're finding ways to use him. Weirdly, in the last game against the Kings, there was a stretch where he was kind of running the offense. And I think it was a play by Frank Vogel to say, okay, if you're not going to guard him, because there was a few turnovers that were, I think, Josh Okogie turnovers, where because they're not guarding him, there's no space to pass. So to play that against them, keeping Josh Okogie on the floor, they start the play with Josh Okogie on the ball. He drives and then kicks, and that gets the ball moving. And that forces them, at least at the beginning of the play, to put a man on Josh Okogie because they're always going to guard the ball. And I'm not sure if that's going to be something they try in the future, but credit to Frank Vogel for trying to find a way to use Josh Okogie in the offense that isn't just standing there with nobody guarding him, because they're just not guarding him at all right now. All right, you got anything else?
Nope. No, I do not.
All right, let's switch over. Looking forward to seeing Bradley Beal. Let's switch over and take a quick break, and then we'll listen to some voicemails. We'll be right back. All right, so if you'd like to give us a call, it's 480-420-6553. We try to listen to voicemails on every single podcast. We got quite a few. So let's get right into it, Sam. Here we go.
Hey guys, well, I've been a long time listener for about a couple of years now, a couple seasons. Thank you for everything, all the content you guys put out there. My name is Kiko, and I live in New Mexico, Santa Fe. So my question kind of has to do with the G League affiliate that we eventually will have. I think I remember listening to a podcast where talking about possibly where it'd be, and it's most likely it's going to be in the Phoenix area. But something I was thinking about, being a New Mexico resident, is why not have it in Albuquerque? And let me know what you guys think. Again, thank you for all the content you guys put out and for everything. Can't wait to hear what you guys have to say. Okay, thank you. Bye.
All right. Thank you for that question, Kiko. I think he said his name was Kiko.
Yeah, Kiko, thank you. I think you are the expert here on all things New Mexico, actually, Mike.
Yeah,
if you want to take this one first.
Well, I think it's actually a city you mentioned before in the past, Sam, in Albuquerque, in that it's got a large population and the ability to handle that kind of thing. I think they have a whatever the G League version of the MLS team is in Albuquerque right now, and I think they're even building a stadium, a smaller stadium to help fit that team. So,
but that's wild if a city as big as Albuquerque, if that's their only professional sports.
I think they have a
do they
MLB
not have like
team too? Whatever the
yeah, I was gonna say there has to be
minor league. There you go.
Yeah, the minor leagues.
I don't know baseball. Sorry,
your total ignorance of baseball is so funny. On the playback stream the other night, Mike had no idea that Ohtani was a free agent. Anyway, I'm all for it. I'm all for it.
Yeah, I think it would be fine. And by the way, I just want to mention he said that it's likely going to be in the Phoenix area. We don't know that. We have no idea where it's going to be. I just mentioned Phoenix as a possibility because it's something that teams are doing now, where they put the G League team in the same city to help share training facilities. But it could be somewhere as close as Albuquerque as well. It could be northern Arizona again. Once again,
there are plenty of examples that are, the G League affiliate is within a few hours drive, right? I think is what's acceptable. How far is Albuquerque from Phoenix by drive? Would it be
probably
like
6-7 hours? Yeah,
6-7 hours. It is a little bit far. But what is that? A 1 hour flight?
Yeah.
Wouldn't
it's
be that
an
hard
easy
to get
flight,
back and
yeah.
forth.
It's definitely a possibility, and I could see
would
them
be
doing
curious.
something like that.
I could see them doing it. I would be curious just to see the data, if the data exists, because I know you are from New Mexico originally.
Mm-hmm.
But I wonder how many New Mexican Suns fans there really are.
No, I think he's right. He mentioned, I might have to edit this one because it was cutting out a little bit, but in the voicemail he mentions seeing a lot of Lakers and Nuggets fans, and specifically Lakers fans. There's a ton, and I think part of that is there's been no effort by Phoenix to make that
to colonize.
Yeah, so yeah, and maybe they can. It's a really good point. Now's the time with the team that's pretty interesting and fun to watch. So we'll see if they end up doing something like that. We'll know probably pretty soon. I imagine it'll be announced at some point during the season because they want to have a G League team as early as next year. So we'll see if they let us know. All right, let's listen to another one.
Mike and Sam, thanks for all you guys do. Love the show. Hey, it is, 1:30 in the morning, and I'm still kind of coming down after that Lakers Suns game where the Suns got screwed by the ref. I'm strangely not livid, and I feel like the reason is that it kind of almost feels like the cat's out of the bag. Feels like stuff is coming to the light, like you can't deny it anymore. I don't know. From Donaghy all the way to now, it just feels like there's some stuff that I don't know. It's out. So, anyways, thanks for what you guys do. Love the show. Have a good night.
Thank you for that, by the way. But that's a good example of how all Suns fans. This was right after the game, and it's a good example of how all Suns fans feel that night.
This came in at Wednesday, 1:44 a.m. It says in our inbox. Yeah, that's really funny.
I don't know. I'm not as conspiratorial as other people are on this in general. I just think refs can be really bad sometimes, and I don't think it's like Adam Silver makes the call or anything. Maybe I'll make those jokes occasionally on Twitter. I don't actually think that it goes that deep. I think that refs are just really impacted by big stars, big lights, big cities, and stuff like that, and they make bad calls as a result of it sometimes.
I'll throw him a bone though. This first in-season tournament, Adam Silver might have made the call.
Yeah, it's a little fishy.
This time around, he might have made the call. They obviously didn't need help in that next game, the semifinal against New Orleans. But just to get by the Suns, it was a little bit more difficult for them.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I just like that represents how everyone felt that night. All right, here we go.
Hi, this is Jeremy Wong. I'm a longtime listener out of Virginia. My question for you guys is, having a quarter of the season gone now, what do you think the biggest need for the Suns is? Is it a big forward to help with the rebounding issue, or is it a backup guard to help with the turnover issue? I also want to say a shout out to Sam for staying up late to watch games. I do that too, and it's a pain every time. So it's good to know that there's other Suns fans out here listening to stuff on the East Coast. Thanks. Bye.
Staying up late,
Thank you,
Sam.
Jeremy. Yeah, man. It's less difficult for me than it used to be, because I used to have some job constraints. I've talked about it before, that would require me to be up at 4 a.m. Thankfully, I don't have to do that anymore. So it's a little bit easier this season. I'm struggling less, but it's always still difficult when when you're going to bed at, say, 12:30, 1 a.m., especially for some of those late games. He hit the nail on the head, though, with he talked about the big forward to help with the rebounding issue.
A timely question,
we talked about on this episode. Yeah.
It's funny because I think it's a good question. There are three things I think the Suns need that you could say are a need personnel-wise, and they're the three main positions on the court, right? But they don't need necessarily the star player, right, in Bradley Beal, Devin Booker, Kevin Durant. They don't need that. But you could say they need a point guard. You could say they need a big wing, not just for rebounding, but also guarding bigger wings. They don't, they put Josh Okogie on LeBron James. And then lastly, you could say they need a third big, which we've talked about recently on episodes, when Eubanks just doesn't have it and Nurkic is in foul trouble. The question, I think, is related to what part of the season you're talking about. If you're trading for a point guard, you're doing it for the regular season. And if you're trading for a big wing, that could be a playoff thing. That could be a playoff thing. So I almost feel like if you're just viewing the season through the lens of the playoffs, maybe that's the biggest need, because if you can find a way to solve that problem, and it's going to be hard with the assets that we have, that would be the biggest impact on the playoffs if they're capable of playing in the playoffs. But that might mean Grayson Allen's gone. It might mean Grayson Allen and Nasir Little is gone, for example. So it's up to how you rate those guys and what you want to solve. But what do you think?
No, I think you're right. I think it's totally a playoff move. And finding a big wing in the $15 million salary tier that would necessitate Grayson Allen being involved in that trade, I think that's going to be difficult. I can't identify anyone off the top of my head where that really feels like it would make sense for the Suns, given we also talked about how important their three-point shooting is and maintaining that three-point shooting. And Grayson has been such a huge part of that. If it's a smaller player in the more like $7-8 million range, and you're talking about just trading Nasir Little and Bol, well, how many teams can you think of that are really just willing to accept a downgrade at the forward position like that? So I think it's going to be difficult no matter what. This is why maybe the buyout market comes into play for us a little bit later in the season. But we're just going to have to keep our eyes open. Definitely, if I just had to identify number one need right now, I'm leaning more towards forward than guard.
Good question, Jeremy. Thanks for that one.
Hey, Mike and Sam, love your stuff. You're the main Suns podcast I listen to. I've been listening the last couple of years. So appreciate all you guys doing the hard work you put in. My question is, if you could pick any two Suns from the last, let's say, 30 years. I started watching the Suns when I was in elementary school, growing up in Phoenix, mid-90s, with Rex Chapman, his game winner against the Sonics, I think it was, for game tire, the ridiculous shot the kid threw him. So starting from that generation era up till now, if you could pick any two Suns players to have dinner with and just chat about stuff, what would it be? For me, some of my all-time favorites are Book and Nash, so it might be those two, but there'd be some real humorous ones like Ayton and Marion, and just discussing, what was it like to feel slighted on the Suns, or Raja Bell and another enforcer, or just different people, different combinations. Curious what you guys would pick. Thanks for all you guys do.
The last 30 years, who would you want to have dinner with, have a conversation with, if you're going to pick two players?
His Marion shout out was really good. I mean, that's just
the
a classic.
Marion
Sean
Aiton combination, I think, is fascinating.
Yeah. I would go to dinner with the Morris twins and ask them if they really did beat that one guy's ass that they should have been thrown in prison for.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know. There's some funny combinations that you could unearth here. Would you wanna, like, I'm trying to resist the temptation to just throw out memes here. Like there is a certain temptation to like talk to Pat Burke about what it was like being on the end of the Suns bench.
I'm trying to think who would actually like take us seriously as dinner guests. And I don't mean seriously like respect us. I just mean like have a good time and have a conversation. Like I feel like I am not cool enough to have a conversation with Devin Booker right now. If I tried
it's got to be
someone,
it's got to be someone who's going to be loose and
right.
Unfortunately,
Nash is a good one.
Nash is a good one. I don't know if Book would treat us with that respect, or KD will talk to anyone, man.
Yeah, KD seems cool. That is a good one.
Like KD, like if you get him in the right frame of mind, I think, just the fact that he goes on Twitter and talks to anyone. He said recently to someone, he was like, I forget exactly what that person was saying, but they were like, accusing him, as people tend to do, of like, why are you spending so much time online? Why are you replying to me? Yada, yada. And he was like, you think I'm too good to reply to you? Like you think you're too much of a peasant or a worm or whatever. This is not what he actually said, but he would talk. He would talk to anyone. So that would be kind of cool.
And Barkley, I guess does he fit into that 30 years? I think he does. Yeah. So
he does.
I would say Charles Barkley, Steve Nash. That's the most basic answer you could probably give, but Barkley's so funny.
There are some other options too, like, I don't know, some of the foreign guys. I feel like I could have a really nice glass of wine and like a cheese plate with Boris Diaw. Aaron Baines might like serve me like a raw steak or something. I don't know. Like I'm just thinking of some of these guys. So
yeah. A meat pie.
A meat pie. Yeah, that's probably more what he would do.
I remember an interview when he was on the team where he was talking about meat pies. I don't know why that stuck in my head, but it did. By the way, this caller called back, let us know his name was Luke. So thank you, Luke, for that. That was an excellent question. All right, we got a few more.
Hi, Sam and Mike. Ben here, or Flow Easy in Discord. There's been a lot of recent mention about how Halliburton could have been a Sun if we simply drafted him instead of Jalen Smith. With that being said, and the number of duds the Suns have drafted, I'm curious to see your guys' Mount Rushmore or Mount Dudmore for top Suns dud draft picks since the time you guys have been watching. There's no shortage of guys to pick from. Thanks.
Nice.
Thank you, by the way, for being a patron and being on the Discord with us. But what's kind of funny is that Jalen Smith is kind of good now too.
Yeah, he's not real. He's not bad. He's not bad.
Obviously the wrong pick, but he's not an awful NBA player like some of the guys the Suns have picked in the past.
Yeah, he would only go on there because of who we could have gotten instead. So like if you wanted to build the Mount Rushmore of players the Suns could have had,
then Ayton would be on there too.
Ayton would be on there too. But yeah, obviously we could have had Luka, we could have had Halliburton. You can play this game with any team, though. There's the ones that hurt more almost is like the classical examples of going back to the Sarver era and thinking about all the picks we traded away. Like we traded away Rajon Rondo, we traded away Luol Deng, yada yada.
Number one bad pick though. I mean, do you have one guy in mind?
I'm honestly I'm not sure who you're gonna say, because I think it could be either Dragan Bender or Josh Jackson. I mean,
I think it's Bender.
Yeah. I mean, they both sucked.
Yeah, but both of those guys are on there. Yeah, you put both of them on there. Yeah, you're right. Beyond that,
Bender, Jackson, and
maybe you would go to Jalen Smith just because he did nothing for the Suns at all during his time here.
The fact that he didn't even make it to his fourth team option. Yeah, sure, Marquise Chris. I mean, the 2016 draft was so crazy because it was like, oh my God, we got both of the power forwards. There's no way both of them bust.
They really sold us on that idea. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just so
and then
tough.
they put him in the worst training facility with an NBA coach that was paid paid like $8 to coach an entire season.
I guess you
those
could
guys
say,
stood no chance to succeed. Thanks to
I
Sarver.
guess you could fill out the Mount Rushmore with Alex Len, but truth be told, I always had kind of a weird soft spot for
11
Alex Len.
seasons in the NBA. Alex
Like,
Len
yeah,
has
he's
played.
somehow
He's still in the NBA.
He's still in the NBA, so you at least have to give him that.
Yeah, I mean, like Dragon Bender's not, Marquise Chris isn't, Jalen Smith is obviously, and I think he'll probably be in the NBA for a while if he continues to play
Jackson's
well.
not.
Jackson's not.
Tyler Ulis isn't.
You can't put Tyler Ulis on there. Elia Kobo.
Oh, yeah.
Well, we know three guys for sure. If anyone has a home run fourth guy, but I think we could probably say Bender, Josh Jackson, Marquise Chris. Let's just say those three guys, just because they were tanking. Like that's when you should get guys to play.
Does Jarrett Culver count? Remember when everyone wanted Jarrett Culver and we're fuming at the fact that we traded down for Cam Johnson?
He wore a Suns hat that day, didn't he? I think he put a Suns hat on, so I guess it counts. All right, here we go.
Hey guys, Bryce from NoHo here, and boy do I have a doomer take for you guys.
Oh no.
Are we choosing to root for the Washington Generals? Because that's the only team in sports history I can compare the Suns to when it comes to losing for the sake of the narrative over and over and over again in glorious fireworks, making life on the internet where everything is real and totally matters constantly painful. Now let us pray our stars can stay healthy and we aren't part of some terrible curse that predates Robert Sarver. I was at the Lakers game on Tuesday and I'm still not over it. Hope you're both having a good one.
Yeah, you know what? I get it. If you had to pay,
Hope you're having a good one too, Rice.
If you had to pay for that one, I understand this take a little bit more after whatever it cost.
Washington Generals are not the only comp. You know, given naturally where I live, I've had more than one Bills fan kind of make the observation to me of like, are the Suns kind of the Bills of the NBA? And you know what?
Yeah,
I think that's probably fair.
Yeah.
Lost 4 finals in a row.
The Generals never win,
of course. Yeah.
So, like, obviously, the Suns are one of the more winningest franchises, if you want to call them that. And yes, they never win in the championship, but there are a few teams that have never won a championship at this point, where the Suns at least have had fun seasons to make up for that. I'm not there, and I'm just gonna celebrate the fact that this is the first full season without Robert Sarver, and hope that means that whatever curse that he brought with him is now gone from this team, and we'll see at the end of the season this year. Any thoughts on that one?
No, just nope.
All right, one more.
Hey, this is Andrew Bailey from Phoenix. Enjoy your guys' podcast. You do great work, both on there and on Twitter. But hey, I have a question for you. Is how concerned are you guys with the rebounding? I know it sounds like everyone's saying it's the biggest weakness. Some guys saying when you go get a power forward, like the Larry Nance Jr. type. But from what I've seen, I feel like it's a matter of just getting healthy and scheming of our guards putting bodies on guys instead of just letting guys run free for offensive rebounds. Let me know your thoughts. Bye.
Thanks, Andrew. We talked about this one coincidentally on this episode. This one came through like when we started recording. Funny,
I will say this
good
is
timing, Andrew.
First, I've heard the Larry Nance Jr. name drop. Had you heard that?
Well, I mean, no, but we tried drafting him, right? Tumani Kamara. Can I ask? I'm going to throw a name at you right now and see how you feel. PJ Tucker is apparently unhappy with his role.
Fuck him. I mean, I'm sorry. I saw this
You're
too.
Fix the rebounding problem right away, man. That dude rebounds.
Dude, he's not good anymore. I mean,
no,
I don't know. How is he in the NBA?
I don't know. I really don't know.
He was one of my favorite Suns 10 years ago.
It's kind of sad how bad he's been on the Clippers so far. Like he went like a good 5-6 games without scoring a single point. And he never shoots. He can't shoot.
He can't shoot anymore. He has no inside offensive presence. He's not a guy who like puts the ball on the floor and creates for others like a Batum type or whatever, right? It's just all there is to his game is make corner threes and defend your butt off. And it's astounding that he's been able to stay relevant in the league for the past 5 or 6 years as his athleticism has slowly left him. But he doesn't have the juice anymore, man.
But would you rather have him than Bol? He's friends. Let me remind you. He's friends with both Kevin Durant and Devin Booker.
I just don't understand what his problem is on the Clippers. Like, dude, you make $11 million. You average 1 point per game. Put your head down and shut up.
And
make your $11
beyond
million.
if they buy him out, which by the way would be insane, but if they do buy him out, then and the Suns are like, we'll cut Bol and sign PJ Tucker, it would be probably more because he's friends with Kevin Durant and Devin Booker than he's good at basketball. But I had to throw that one at you just to see your response there. I agree with you for the record. But yeah, I would say that if I had to, well, I don't know that he is, to be honest. I don't know that he is, but I don't know. If he's unhappy with his role in the Clippers, I can't imagine he'd be happy just sitting on the bench for the Suns. But maybe
he is averaging 3 points per 36 minutes. That is remarkable. I mean, that might be all-time record levels that we're heading towards with PJ there.
If I had to rank what I was the most concerned with, I would put turnovers slightly higher than rebounding, if only because I believe the turnover problem could be more fixable with the personnel the Suns currently have than the rebounding problem. But what do you think, Sam?
I think the turnovers, the turnovers are probably more of a pressing issue right now, but I think there's more of a chance, how I'd put it, there's more of a chance that we can regulate that with Beal's return to the lineup. That I think you could make more of a case that the turnovers are a personnel issue that can be fixed. Whereas the rebounds, I'm not sure they can be fixed without external help.
Yep. If they do make a trade for a bigger wing, though, I think that could be a helpful thing. But playing Metu more, Metu making threes, that could be helpful as well.
Yeah,
especially because Keita Bates-Diop not been great lately. We didn't talk about that much on this podcast, but not a great showing from Keita Bates-Diop so far this season.
He has not been good. Chimezie just being our Aaron Gordon would be fire. I would love that. But we'll
be amazing.
See. I don't know.
It'd be amazing. Thank you, everyone, and thank you, Andrew, for that question, and thank you, everyone who left us voicemails this week. We appreciate all of you. 480-420-6553. Feel free to leave us voicemails throughout the week. We'll listen to them on the main feed pod if we can get to as many as possible. We appreciate all of you. We'll be back with a midweek Patreon podcast after the 2 games that we're seeing back-to-back on Tuesday and Wednesday, so probably about Thursday that we'll have a Patreon episode. If you want to listen to that, patreon.com/thetimeline. Join there. Join us on Discord. All the options are there on that page. Playback on Wednesday against the Brooklyn Nets. We'll see the Suns play against the Twins in Mikal Bridges and Cameron Johnson. I think that would be a really fun one for everyone to join us to watch on Playback. Playback.tv/thetimeline. And lastly, don't forget to check out our merch, ethicalhoops.com. We appreciate all of you, and we'll be back very, very soon.